Okay, so I already recorded this when I was typing all of this out for the first time, and my computer only saved the screenshot. It did not save my audio. So here we go again. But instead of typing it all up again and you watching my horrible typing skills, I'm just going to kind of go through my process and explain what I've got on the screen here in front of us. So for the distillation number 1 on Plato, I'm asking you for the 4 items. I'm asking you to give me a bullet point list of Plato's biography, the thesis statement that you come up with, that you write of Plato's Symposium in 1 sentence. Here I have a very long sentence that I'll explain in a minute. Several pieces of evidence with brief bullet-pointed descriptions of how the evidence or the passage you chose relates back to the thesis, and then an item or 2 of your own takeaway, having made it through the entire book. So my process is this. When I approach writing or coming up with a thesis statement for a book that I've read or a journal article, and please know that this isn't just an exercise I give you all, this is a practice I keep when I'm doing my own research and work. That way, the more detailed I can make my distillation of the given article or book, the more effective it is to go back and use it when I'm writing my research papers or my book chapters or whatever I happen to be working on at that time. It makes the process quite smooth because I've already pre-digested all of the information. Now I just have to, in my writing, arrange it how I want it to be. So when I'm trying to come up with the thesis statement, I list out, and that's what these main themes are here that I've just highlighted. I list out as many of the details that are important to the overall flow or the general flow of the book that I can come up with. And the more specific I am here, the easier it's going to be to write my thesis statement afterwards, right? And I'm going to list out these main themes here bolded, but I'm going to delete them or not include them in the actual distillation that I'm going to turn in, or that you will turn into me. But I listed several themes that I just thought of offhand. I can always go back and amend these or add to them, or if I remember a more pertinent theme, I can definitely add them into here as well. But what we have in the symposium are 5 speeches of the first 5 folks before we get to the speeches of Socrates and then at the end of Alcibiades. So we have 7 speeches total, right? And the topic is love. Now, the first 5 speeches build upon one another. So each progress or build in sort of their knowledge so that we get the most basic understanding of love from Phaedrus in the very beginning, and definitely a complementary but more advanced understanding of love by the time we get to Agathon. And then Socrates enters, right? After or during that moment of aporia, that moment of Agathon saying, "It turns out, Socrates, I did not know what I was talking about in my speech," which, again, he said sarcastically, but at least it opens the door for a new insight to come when we actually acknowledge that we don't know it all and we need help from the outside. Again, that's what dialogue in this dialogue is meant to initiate, is us seeing things from a different perspective so that we can figure out, once again, how to expand our understanding of a topic. So when Socrates comes in, he turns the subject away from love as sort of the object of the inquiry and moves instead to beauty. And I should probably capitalize beauty here, because really what he's driving us towards is the essence of beauty, or beauty in its most ideal or fullness, right? So he explains, or Diotima helps explain, that love is not what we desire. That's not the end, the object of our quest, of our journey, right? Because we only yearn for, we only desire things that we lack. And if we have love, if we are in love, we don't lack it. So love is something other than the object of our desire. Love instead, he says, is kind of like the vehicle that moves us or drives us to beauty in its essence or most ideal form, remember. So love is an energy. It is a force that is powerful enough if we figure out how to harness it to get us to what we truly desire. So here we go. We have now some characteristics that I'm going to list out, or I listed out here, for beauty itself. So what do I understand? What do we want? How do we drive for or pine after beauty? Well, what do we want with it? We want to understand it. We want to see it. We want to experience it. We want to ultimately remember it. Because if you remember my chat about the Plato's theory of forms, the good up in the sky, right? And we have somehow fallen down to the earth and find ourselves limited and ignorant of the reality we used to at one point understand and know in the present. So we're trying to remember beauty in its fullness. How do we harness love to get us to beauty? Well, that's when Socrates really digs in and gives us Diotima's wisdom on the thing, and that is labeled or known as Diotima's ladder or staircase. So she explains to us at a couple of points, right, that key to climbing or understanding this ladder is that we have to properly order our pursuit or our souls in this pursuit. We have to understand that we lack a full grasp of something, of beauty, and that acknowledgement that we don't have it in its fullness is what can push us forward into the next step or up the next rung of the ladder. How do we do this? We dialogue with others. We strive always to comprehend. We try to get things from different perspectives because someone else may have a different take on it that you never even considered, that can really open up your awareness of the fullness of beauty. The bottom rungs are naturally more physical or lustful, or as Pausanias told Phaedrus, common, right? And as we move up, we get to the more heavenly distinction. The top rungs are the love of culture and customs and laws, and that's not because Plato was somehow infatuated with, he's not a pencil pusher, right? Instead, what our laws represent is the outpouring of our collective struggle as a city or as a community to embody the ideals and live them out, right? And we always can push and drive towards making them better and more closely in alignment with what beauty is or what justice is, right? And that's why culture, customs, and laws are at the top of the ladder here. We need to realize, though, and this is really important, that every single step up the ladder, every single rung of the ladder is essential. We cannot skip steps. So if you're in the lustful phase of life and love and beauty is seen in the sort of like physical pleasures, then live in that. But eventually, hopefully, if you're awake at all, you will come to realize that that is not enough, that is not beauty in its fullness. And once you hit that point of realization, of thinking maybe there's something more, then you are ripe for moving up the ladder. And indeed, I like the imagery of a ladder because you cannot make progress up a ladder by staying on the bottom rungs. You have to let go of one to reach up to the next one. And indeed, that's the imagery behind Diotima's ladder here. There are more rungs ahead of us. We have to let go of one rung. I kind of went over this in just a second ago. So Diotima gives us these insights here. This is this section here. This is sort of the heart of the core of the new insight. And then Alcibiades at the end of this dialogue, Plato describes him as coming in. He is the ultimate test to see if he got it right. One of the things that Alcibiades keeps going back and forth in his speech about is this vacillation between coming to the end of one rung, and in his case, it's a physical infatuation with one body, that is Socrates, and seeing in Socrates something more, something desirable that he wants as well. And he knows this, he can glimpse it, but he lacks the courage or the drive to harness love, to take that next step, to let go of one rung of the ladder and move up the next one. And that indeed is why Alcibiades is emblematic at the end of this dialogue of someone who sees the good but has a little bit of trouble doing it or enacting it in his life, right? So with all of these main themes, right, I don't have to include these themes in my distillation. These are just my brainstorming notes, basically. I've taken them and come up with a super long and clunky single sentence. And this is totally cool, and please feel free to use this sentence or tweak it toward your own understanding of what you see Plato's thesis to be. That's totally acceptable as well. But I wrote in here, Plato's Symposium is a dialogue about love and beauty where our knowledge of the topic of love builds on the first 5 speeches, but then Socrates explains Diotima's ladder in an effort to help us see that love is the vehicle that gets us to beauty, which we lack in its fullness. By properly ordering ourselves, by progressing through the most common understandings of love and beauty, and eventually progressing closer towards beauty in its essence, and by stepping into the courage that it will take to make this journey or to act toward or in beauty, period. So that's a super long sentence, but it kind of works, okay? It's specific, it's arguable, it is not super general, and so it can be more helpful. So now I have the thesis sentence written out. I can go back, or what I want you to do is take this sentence, if you're going to use it, and go back and find evidence that supports this as a valid thesis and provide me a quick bullet point about why that piece of evidence or that quote in the dialogue adequately sort of sums up one or two of these points in here, and then give me your takeaway at the end, and we're in good shape. And as always, if you have questions, you get stumped or whatever, send me an email. We'll figure it out. See ya.